I am not a designer. And what was I gonna say? Oh, right, but somehow, woo, it's late. It's midnight, okay? Let's try it again. I am not a designer, but somehow I have been able to pull off some pretty cool, dope, little, cute AF designs in my real estate career, and I wanted to talk about that today. Honestly, I had not planned on making this video, but I'm just finishing up one of the designs on my upcoming build in Joshua Tree, and I'm super jazzed about it. I'm like really, really proud of the progress that we've made from start to finish, and I just want to show you my process and help you understand that you don't need to be an architect to design your dream house. So stick around until the very end, and I'm going to reveal what I think is probably the coolest design that I've ever come up with. And when I say me, I mean, well, we'll get into it. Now, it's not me, it's a team. It's a team of people, and really without them, I wouldn't have the cool houses that I've gotten to build over the last couple of years.
You complete me.
So a little bit of background about me so you understand sort of how I've evolved as a creative, I suppose. I am a trained copywriter. I came from the advertising world where I would write words for ads. In working hand in hand with an art director over the past few years, I've really learned to communicate with people who think and feel and breathe visuals. And so I think that's really important whenever you're working with a draftsman or an architect, is to be able to communicate clearly and be able to speak their language and being able to provide visuals to them so that you can kind of talk through ideas. So far I have 3 builds under my belt, 2 tiny houses and a small home build. A tiny house in LA, a tiny house in Joshua Tree, California, and then the small home in Joshua Tree, California as well. There are a million designers and drafters and architects out there. So whenever you're trying to pick one to work with, I suggest that you take your time and choose wisely and see if they understand your ideas and see if they can yes and your ideas and build off of your ideas and iterate off of your ideas, but more importantly, take your ideas and make them better. Generally speaking, you want a designer to push back on your ideas. I mean, I think that's one thing that I'm working with right now with my architect is they push back on my ideas all the time and they have a pretty clear point of view why, and you know, I take their lead on it, and then whenever I'm really resolute on something, they understand that that's something that I want, and I think it's true collaboration to be able to say no to that other person, because that's where I really think you can... Oh man, is this gonna be a good video? I don't always have this planned out, admittedly. We'll see till the end. All right, I think true collaboration with another person is to be able to tell each other no, but with the justification, and if you're gonna say no, you have to bring a better idea to the table. So I thought it would be pretty neat if I showed you some of my designs and where they started at the bottom and where they ended. And I want to show you a little bit more of the raw side of the Robuilt channel. Like, not everything I do starts off cool. Most of the time they kind of suck, and then I refine and I refine and I refine and I obsess and I overly analyze every aspect of the design until finally I'm like, wow, I don't know how I got here, but I like this. So let's start with the first one, the house that put me on the map, Casa Conejo. I want to show you exactly where it started so you can see even that design had its humble beginnings. So this is the very first sketch. When I was thinking of Casa Conejo up here, this is what I thought I wanted it to look like. And you'll see that this actually has a lot of the same bones from the final iteration of the house. I mean, we have our big window right here. We have our 3 little windows right here that stack next to it. The front door on the side here, and then another window over here. Now, as you know, a lot of things changed about that house. It became much taller. It had the eaves that came out from the roof, and it took on this new mid-century form. And the reason that evolution was able to happen was because I relayed that to my draftsman, and in fact, before I even sketched this out, I told him what I wanted, and it was roughly this. So he took this and evolved it to Casa Conejo, and that house will always be so special for me because so many people have reached out and said that they love that house, and so many people have said that that's their dream house, and so many people are building that house all around the country, and it's like, it's really cool because it all started from this insanely horrible sketch. All to say, designing a tiny house and a small house and a regular house, it's a creative process, and you should have a lot of fun doing it. I mean, just looking at these sketches, honestly, earlier I was just like sitting on the couch sort of reflecting, wow, like everything started from this sketch. You know, I really miss the nuts and bolts of designing a house like that, hand in hand with my draftsman Sean Diener from smallhousecatalog.com. This next house I call the Quaff. You'll see why here pretty soon. And this is one of the homes that I'm working on right now in Joshua Tree. So whenever you're trying to relay something to your draftsman or your architect, it's always important to have some kind of visual reference of what you're looking for as a jumping off point. You don't exactly want to copy someone else's work, you just want to iterate on it and put your own spin on it. And I think that's perfectly fine. You don't have to have the most insane, brilliant, original design brewing up in your head. I think it's totally fine to have a reference. So I will show you the reference that I sent to my draftsman. So as you can see here, it's this beautiful mid-century modern home. It's got a minimally sloped gable roof here. Not 100% sure what you would call it, but you've got this window here, a little courtyard over here on the right side that's kind of a carport, and these beautiful kind of foliage and trees and everything like that. So now let me show you where we went with this design. So as you can see here, this is kind of like the very first iteration. This is a very rudimentary conceptual rendering of this house. It starts this way, very raw and simple, and then your draftsman develops and tweaks it and designs it and builds it out over time. I'm gonna go on to the next one here, and you'll see that then it kind of turned into this. So very similar look here as that reference photo that I showed you. It still has that minimally sloped gable there, but then we added the carport here on the right, and then we've got, you know, an accordion door here on the right, and we've got this little accordion window right here for whenever you're in the kitchen and you're washing dishes or cooking, you want to open that window and look out. So, you know, I mean, this was a good effort, you know, like I'm happy that we took this. And I mean, and also like I just didn't love it, you know, not a fan of this one. This is the front of the house. And let me be very clear here. My draftsman did exactly what I asked him to do. Like this is the design that I spit out to him, and I was just like, will you do this? And he was like, all right, yeah. And he did it. Once he designed it, I was just like so scared to tell him I didn't like it, you know, because this is not me, you know, this is not it. If you saw this house, like not a fan. This is the perfect example when you get too married to a concept and you just won't let it go and you try to make it work. This is what it ends up looking like. And yeah, I'm sure if I built this in real life, like it would probably look kind of cool in some regard, but I'm building this with an investor and I'm not about to drop $500,000 on a house that I'm not completely smitten by. I had a come to Jesus meeting with my designer and I was like, look man, this is not working for me. I talked to my architect buddy who actually designed the next house we're about to see, and he gave me a few pointers, and I just had a complete working session with my draftsman, and I just felt like in the 1 hour that we had this working session, we were able to uncover like such a great design. So I'm so excited to show you this. I've been hesitant to show this on the channel just because it's not done yet, and it's probably still going to change a little bit, but here we go. As you can see here, this honestly, I would say this looks like 0.5% similar to the one that we just saw. Like nothing about this looks anything like the house that we just saw. And thanks, sweet baby Jesus. By the way, this little thingy right here, you might notice there's a little band-aid on this guy. I was cooking a dope little brisket and I was like slicing it, and then my daughter started crying and I looked over, and then when I looked back over here and I finished slicing, I got the tip of my fingy and it hurts. It really does hurt. Peter McKinnon broke a finger.
I broke all my fingers.
That's nothing like slicing the tip of your finger. Anyway, thank goodness. I'm so glad that I scrapped that other design, and honestly, I got to this point where I was so scared to speak up to my draftsman because he spent so many hours on that design, and I was like, man, he's worked so hard on it. I don't want to break his heart and hurt his feelings. Well, ultimately, we're spending $500,000 on this house roughly. So honestly, my tip here is like, if you are uncomfortable with something, if you don't like something, just say something. Most drafters and designers and architects are professionals, and they want to build something that you love and that you're actually going to go out and build. So if you don't speak up, you're going to spend all this money on a design that you hate. If you hate the design, you may never actually build the house. So with that, let's get into this house a little bit. So I call it the coif just because it's got sort of this like opposing gable here, and it kind of looks like the coif. It kind of looks like the Robuilt coif, you know what I mean? So as you can see, overall, this house really does fit within the Robuilt portfolio, right? We have the white stucco, we have the nice wood slats that accent the windows, we have black trim. I mean, this really is like the mega version of Casa Mariposa and Casa Conejo, and it's really nice, and I'm so excited to build this. So I'm gonna try to get to the back here. This is pretty hard to do. Fucking you. This program is like, it's crazy to me that it exists. What is happening? What's a guy gotta do? What's a guy gotta do? Get this program to work right.
Several bad puns later.
Okay, so as we get into the back here, after some technical difficulties, this is the backyard. This is like the back area. We're gonna have a really nice outdoor space right here. So I'm gonna have some kind of grill patio area back here, and then this is all open, so we'll probably have patio tables. This is an accordion door, and this will of course look out into like a view over here. Picture of Joshua trees and mountains and goats and beautiful unicorns and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, like this house, to me, I'm gonna be so stoked when this is done, and I'm gonna be proud of this because of how I got here. I got here by speaking up and by saying I didn't like the original design, and then I came up with a better solution. I didn't want to just tell my draftsman, hey, I don't like this design, go think of something else. I brought him an idea, and we workshopped it, and it turned into what I think is going to be the coolest thing that I've ever built. That's arguable, because I think that this next house, the final house that I'm going to be showing you, probably going to be the contender for the coolest things I've ever built. So check this out. So for this next design, I worked with my good friend Dylan Draves. He's an architect. He's really helped me form my interior design palette, if you will. And I decided to bring him on to this project because I wanted to try working with an architect for a change. So in terms of my overall workflow, there's a really big difference between working with a draftsman and an architect. They both serve a very specific purpose. So with the draftsman or a drafter, they're typically the more nuts and bolts technical aspects of designing a house, and they will design a home based off of your very prescriptive feedback. Now there are definitely more conceptual drafters out there who will bring you an idea and you can kind of workshop it from there. But in my experience, I'm typically the one kind of providing my vision, right? And so that's such a pivotal part in designing a house is my vision, so that my draftsman, who's a little bit more on the technical side, can build that from the ground up and make sure that that meshes with what I wanted. So that's a drafter. An architect, on the other hand, are way bigger divas. No, I'm just kidding, Dylan. You're great. Architects go through way more schooling and certifications, and they just are way more conceptual. You know, like in movies, whenever they're like, you know, they've got the tarp over the easel and they're like, I give you the Bridget. And it's like a super conceptual architectural little croissant. Well, that's like an architect, right? They bring the concept to you versus you bring the concept to them. And this has really been a game changer for me. Now, as much as I love designing houses and really thinking them up and relaying them to my draftsman and collaborating and doing all that kind of stuff, the fact of the matter is, with the 14 projects that I have going on right now, being a full-time YouTuber, being a father to 2 kids, a newborn and an 18-month-old, being a husband, all that kind of stuff, like I just don't have the same time that I used to designing houses. And here's the thing, like I'm also just not good at that. Like that's not my thing.
I don't even know what this is. This sort of thing ain't my bag, baby.
I love doing it, but that's not like my spiritual gift, you know what I mean? So I'm okay with that. I'm happy to have designed the ones that I've had. What? I'm happy to have had such a heavy hand in the design of those first 3 houses, but I'm also really happy to like give the keys over to like a legitimate professional who does this for a living. And so even with an architect like Dylan, there's still a process, there's still a collaborative effort between both of us. I think that's what I was really scared of ultimately with working with an architect, was that I wouldn't have any creative input on it. But that's really not true at all. We've really been able to work hand in hand on these designs, and I'm really proud of them. Now, obviously he's like the one that designed it and everything like that, but I still feel like my touch is on here in some regard. So let's take a look. This is the first iteration of this design. He brought me 3 different designs. I wasn't in love with one of them. He gave me 2 other good options, but something about this felt like it had a lot of potential to me. I didn't love this originally, but after we talked it through and talked about what it could be, I was like, okay, I see potential here. Go blow this out. I want it to be more abstract. I want to see more shapes in this. I want to see more textures, and I want more color. And he was like, all right, check, check, check. I'm an architect. That's what I love to hear. That's what I'm gonna do. And I was like, all right, go have fun. Go, my child. Go forth and prosper. Don't use that if it's not funny. So anyway, this is the first iteration of this design. Now, ultimately, this is going in Joshua Tree, so I just felt like it needed a little bit more oomph, and I just wanted something more abstract and postmodern. And then he came back with the second iteration of this design, which to me, I think was like 100 times better. Now we start to see form, now we start to see color, and we start to see juxtapositions of shapes. Now the colors come together. I was like, all right, I'm starting to see something special. I'm starting to see something that I've never seen before. And we talked this through, and I was like, I am so happy that you really pushed this, because he brought me this and he brought me another design, but something about this still wasn't right. You know, I was like, I know that we're really just scratching the tip of the iceberg here, which is not the phrase. We're really just scratching the surface on this, and I want you to push it even more. I want there to be more points in the roof. I want there to be more indents. I want there to be more shape and bolder colors. And he was like, all right, yeah, I was just trying to keep it simple for your cost so that it wasn't super expensive to build. And I was like, no, we're gonna do this thing right. Get a little crazier with it. Get a little wackier with it.
I could be crazier.
Let go of my leg.
I could be totally insane.
And come back to me and let's do this thing. And he was like, okay. So today he brings me the 3rd iteration, which at this thing. Look how dope this is. I mean, this is really the final form of this building. I mean, there's more that we could do to it, and there's more that we're going to do to it. But overall, this is exactly what I wanted to see from him. And I just want to show you really fast. I want to remind you what this looked like when we started. Kind of these boxy, almost like a, I don't want to say like a strip or a shopping mall, but like just like kind of these modern boxes that were next to each other. Not really much of a deserty thing, right? But I think what makes it deserty is now we start bringing in some of these abstract shapes and the colors, right? And so then we evolve it to stage 3 here. And now I really feel like we have a one-of-a-kind, unique build that I've never seen before. This to me is what I describe as a modern Palm Springs. Like we're bringing a modern desert Palm Springs vibe to Joshua Tree. I'll show you another elevation here. So this is from the back side. You can kind of see we have this really cool blue breezeway pergola type of thing. But what I really like about this is not just the color, but how the color actually spills onto the concrete, right? So you can kind of see it here. And then this is the carport, and we're having a lot of fun with the carport. Generally the most boring thing in architecture, ugly carports are now exciting in this design. And I'm thinking about having a mural artist come out and paint the back of these walls right here and making these a very kind of Instagram forward location for all the ladies with the wide brim hats and like the super flowy like jacket things, and you know, and they're like pumpkin spice latte and they're macrame and so white woman's Instagram. Oh, it's late. And I don't even think I mentioned, this is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house here on the left. And then on the right, it's a 2-bedroom, 2-bath. So it's actually a single family residence in an ADU, also known as an accessory dwelling unit. And so the idea is that people can rent the main house separately from the ADU, and then big groups of people can come and rent the entire property. And this could be a very premium experience that books anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000 a night. It can be booked for photo shoots, for weddings, for music videos, for movies. For me, when I saw this, I was in awe, A, in the transformation, but B, in the fact that there's an entire business in this house. And it all comes down to the design and the aesthetic, and it all came together because I trusted an architect to run with it. And with some creative direction and with some collaboration between the both of us, we got a little cutie coming to Joshua Tree in the next 2 years, along with the quaff. We're about to enter permitting on that one. But yeah, big things coming, they're in the works, and that's my design process. Honestly, I don't really know how this video turned out or if any of that made sense, but I had a lot of fun talking about it. If you have any questions about anything, feel free to leave me a comment down below. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe button, and the little notification bell if you want to be notified anytime I talk about designing tiny houses and small houses and weird geometric, abstract postmodern houses. That's it. Thank you for watching. It's late, it's 1:05 a.m. and my fingy hurts, so I'll catch you on the next episode of Robuilt.